Welcome, everybody, to another edition of FIreHouse Table Talk. I'm your host, Scott Jones from Addiction Training Center. I want to thank everybody for joining us and certainly for following FIreHouse Table Talk all this time. Certainly hope everybody had a healthy and safe Thanksgiving with family and friends. But we're going into some more holidays. We got Christmas coming up. We've got New Year's coming up. We got a lot of good things happening. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to talk about what firefighters go through during the holiday season, some of the things that we might not be aware of that first responders have to deal with, and also certainly some safety tips, some things to keep in mind, especially with your Christmas trees and all the other things. So we're going to bring all that up. But we've got like two of my favorite people in the world with us today, which is fantastic. As always, let's bring in first Chief Keith Bryer from the Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. Chief, how are you?
I'm good, Scott. How are you?
I am just fine, and we were chatting before the show. You were asking me, and I had a great Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was very good. It was uneventful and no drama, which is, always good. So it was nice always to be with family and just chill out, relax, have a good time. So thank you very much. It was really
wait, so your whole family came together and you had no drama? Okay. I didn't grow up in the same kind of family you did.
That's actually kind of like our norm for some reason. So it's always good to get together and get the grandkids and get everybody together. But,
Absolutely.
But next year, we're all heading to your house for the cooking.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, come on over. I made a great turkey with cranberry, and it was good. It was good. And we also have with us, of course, Chaplain Chad Lang, who's been with us before on the show. Chad, how are you?
I'm doing well, Scott. Thanks for having me.
And I trust you had a good holiday, a good Thanksgiving as well.
I did. I was listening to Chief Bryer. We actually had family in as well. Everyone was at our house. There was no drama. It was great. And so it worked out. A lot of laughs and a lot of kids running around. So that's all good. That produces a little stress in me, but that's okay. So
that's but it's good to be around family and stuff. And certainly, not everybody's as lucky. Not everybody has had, a year where they can have family get-togethers. So we're all blessed and lucky, certainly. But let's talk a little bit about, now we're into this stretch of December and going into New Year's Eve, January, the holidays with Christmas and New Year's. A lot of stress, a lot of people out on the roads. There's a lot of people doing shopping. There's a lot of things going on. Are there more responsibilities for you, Chief, during this time of year, or does it seem like it's a little bit heightened?
Well, we're busy this time of year. This is our season. People are here. They're here for the holidays. But it's as far as call volume, it picks up a little bit. People are out there. Traffic is heavy. Everybody seems to be a little bit stressed out. But we don't see much in the way of that much more call volume this time of the year.
Okay. Chaplain, do you think those stress levels, is that a contributor to some of the things that you have to deal with out there?
Well, the stress is always one of those things that come into play anytime holidays are around. The hustle and bustle, right? We all remember the songs of the holiday season. It seems like some of that's missed at times. And so, I think that this time of year, just statistically speaking, there are different calls that come in as well. And so as stress comes up, people are around each other a little bit more. Kids are home from school typically during the holiday season. So you'll run into maybe a different type of call, maybe not an increase, but a different type of call. And anytime you have children involved, a lot of people around, that produces a different type of stress on first responders, as we know.
Chief, I also have to ask, just because of where we're coming from over the last couple of years, has there been any conversations about holidays? And this is, I think, our second season now where people are really getting back to visiting and doing things. Has there been any discussions about COVID or RSV or being prepared to having an influx of people in the area?
So, we are starting to see some pickup. We're not getting as called as often as we used to when this first came. People now are going to their primary care physicians to get treated. And our guys are really good about, depending on the call type, making sure they're wearing the proper protection when they go into the house. So, 2 years ago, it would have been a different story. This year, we are seeing a lot of COVID. We're seeing flu, RSV. We're seeing it all now. But that's typical for this time of the year, anytime outside of COVID. So, they know the health tips for themselves, right? Get plenty of sleep, make sure you're eating good, keep your stress levels. A lot of them take supplements and vitamins, but they know what they need to do to keep themselves safe. Most importantly, make sure they're wearing the proper PPE when they go into a house. So they're wearing their masks, they're wearing their gloves, and they're following those proper procedures. So
a little off topic from the holidays, but after going through something that we went through those last few years, did you guys learn stuff? I mean, were there things that, like good learning lessons or good lessons for us moving forward, that if this ever happens again, you've learned new ways to deal with things? Has there been good lessons in this thing?
There really has been. One of the things that we would say is, as far as our preparation goes, I think it was Mike Tyson that said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So for us, it's really about making sure the crews were prepared. Everything was kind of fluid. We were in the same boat as everybody else. Nobody had a huge surplus of masks. So when this came out and everybody was trying to gobble them up, it became a little bit anxious for those. At first, when we were going out, they were going out wearing their SCBAs with their air packs with their masks, just trying to keep some kind of protection. As we were able to get masks and do those things, and things started to settle down a little bit. But I think the biggest thing is we had a pandemic plan. That plan had never been tested, right? Mm-hmm. So what we really did was we went back, we revamped that plan, and really it serves as a scaffold for a pandemic, but it is not so drilled into detail, because what we found out is you simply can't do that. It's got to remain fluid. You got to be able to change, and you got to be able to change quickly. We did upgrade most of our personal protective equipment to cover a more broader range of things. So, we don't have a bunch of different types of masks. We have one type of mask now, and we upgraded that to be the most stringent of all the masks. So there's a lot of things that we did. A lot of good things came out of that, and it just helps better prepare us.
You said you had a plan that was untested. Now you've got a plan that certainly you've got to feel you've got more faith in that plan, because now it has been tested.
Absolutely.
And you feel a little more prepared. I mean, we know these things are cyclical. Something's going to happen someday. Somebody's going to get bit by a monkey in Australia, and all of a sudden the whole world's in trouble. Something's going to happen. Chad, during these holidays, have you noticed extra stress on the members of the fire department and rescue squads as far as being away from their families? Is that a stressor on them, or is that a problem?
Well, man, I think it can be. I think over the years, depending on how long someone's been within the department, they've figured out ways to navigate this time of year. Anytime the holidays are around, or anytime something like this comes up, those that have been around figured out ways to kind of run around it. Those that are maybe new don't know what they don't know. And so some of the senior team might be able to help them. But if navigated the right way, the holidays can still be incredibly impactful, even for first responders. It can still have the same joy in it, no matter the faith, no matter what the celebration is. They can still be a part of those things, so long as there's just some pre-prep. And so although there is maybe some stress and tension in different ways, but as far as being there with family, now I know for years being with the fire service, and then for 20 years being with the church, a lot of my holidays are taken up. And so I'm kind of at, full days on days that most people are home spending with family. But if you can control it, and maybe Santa or whatever comes a day early when you're not on shift, and you can navigate some things. And so you can do that. And it's just maybe a different tradition with your family, but it still allows for the flexibility. And kids don't know what they don't know. We as parents have a tendency to put the extra additional stress on the holiday or whatever the case may be. But as first responders, when it comes to the personal home life, there are just some creative ways to still allow them to be present. And of course, even on the day of, or days of in the holiday season, families are always welcome around the house at any of the stations. They are capable of being around their loved one, so long as they're not on calls, right? So there are ways to go about that. But there are some stressors and tension when it comes to calls this time of year, for sure. Christmas feels a lot different, or the holidays feel a lot different when you respond to a pretty traumatic call, when maybe a little child lost their mom on a holiday, and that sits with first responders a lot differently, and for those families, of course. So,
Chief, what Chad just brought up is important to understand that for the families and for the first responders, those kind of tragedies on holidays, they're especially impactful, aren't they?
They are. And I think what happens is that there's other times of the year that it might not be so impactful, but if we go to a car accident and a parent passes away as a result of that car accident, there's children in the car, we're going back to the station, and we know for that child, this is no longer going to be Christmas every year, but this is going to be the day that they lost a parent. So, bringing that back with you and being able to discuss that with the crew, there's never a good time for a child to lose a parent, but I think it's really heightened, and the emotion is more, certainly around the holidays.
And that's, obviously, I can't speak from my own experience because I haven't been in your shoes, gentlemen, but when you do face something like that, how much of your thoughts go to your own family and your own family's safety when you're standing in those situations? Is that something that happens?
Yeah, I think that, and Chad could speak to this as well, but I think that if you run a call where there's a 12-year-old child and you have a 12-year-old child, you're going to immediately associate the two together. I can tell you that before I had children, I was able to run calls on children and be really kind of emotionally detached from that, right? It was just a job. Once I had children, that significantly changed for me, for sure. So you make that personal connection, absolutely.
Chad, you want to respond to that as well?
No, I mean, to echo what the Chief was saying, I mean, it is uniquely different, right? So you do internalize those moments, because everyone's got family that are moving around all throughout the holidays. And, then you get back now, thinking about this, even leading up to today's show, just thinking, how often when I hear something, I'll even send my wife a text, hey, everything going okay? I know you're in a certain area. Can you imagine doing that on a consistent basis, especially through the holidays? I mean, you're going to internally bring that in. And probably rightfully so. And that's the great part about the Firehouse tables, right? The dinner tables, and sitting around and having those conversations. And in the Firehouse and the fire station are so much more welcoming into those conversations. Mental health is a massive part of the departments now across the country, which is fantastic. And so an individual can have a conversation, about that, and no one's going to say anything negative towards that. The captains, lieutenants, they're going to kind of almost pull some of that stuff out in this season now too. And hey, let's talk through that. That was really hard, and we need to sit down and have a conversation about it. And it's during the holidays, or anytime there's certain calls that come in where I may know the crew that's on, know their family, and based on the call, I just may be proactive and just head over to the station. Just to be present, just to be around during this time of year, if they do want to sit and chat, just because of that.
I think that's excellent. Chief, you and I have been talking from the beginning about more awareness about mental health and trauma and different things like that, and being more transparent and open, and just The more people can come back from a call, and even if they need to go kick a trash can and yell and scream for a minute, at least it's something. It's showing something instead of saying I'm fine. Because I'm fine is that's the TNT being lit right there, right?
Absolutely. And, I think that, having those conversations and having a department that we spend a lot of time with mental health with them. And having somebody like the chaplain who is very proactive, who goes out there, a lot of times as we've talked, even though there's no reason to, a lot of times they don't feel comfortable talking to administration or letting administration even know that there's an issue or a problem. So our job is to make sure that they understand it's always okay, and putting people in place. We have a mental health care counselor, we have a peer support team, we have the chaplain who communicate together all the time. They meet together regularly, they're talking. They basically say, hey, listen, here's what the temperature of this is. Let's fix it. This is what we think you need to do. And as administration, we'll just make it happen. So when you have people that are in place specifically to make sure everybody's okay, and that are getting us that information so we can make whatever changes administratively we need to do, is huge. So I know that my people are taken care of, and we got good people that are doing it. So it makes a huge difference. But he talks to them, he goes out, listen, that was a bad call. And, it sucked. But be careful of how you're going to deal with this, right? We all know that, drinking and drugs are all just self-medication.
Yeah.
Be very careful about doing that. So he's out there having those conversations. And he's very proactive. He shows up at the station. Nobody calls him. He listens to the calls. He hears it. He goes out, and they're very comfortable with having those conversations.
Well, I think we all know with police, fire, military, most first responders, the decompressor for years has been go to the bar afterwards, drink it away, and then go on. And we're starting to see the residuals of that. It doesn't work. It buries it, but it does not help it. So, Chad, were you going to add something to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I was going to add a little bit, but you're right. It's what you brought up Mike Tyson's quote, Chief, and it is a reality, but man, that doesn't mean don't make it, right? We make the plan, and we talk to our newer recruits, and anytime we get the chance to sit down and even talk to those that have been seasoned around, is you make plans when you're really healthy, for the moments that seem to be unhealthy. And then those things will naturally come into play. That's where you're going to go. Who are the individuals that you're calling when you do have the bad call? When this time of year, and by the way, we're assuming that everyone's going home to a really healthy family in the first responder community, and that's not the case either, right? We joked around that everyone was around for the holiday and there were no issues. That's not always the case for everybody. And sometimes being at the firehouse or being at the station is their release from that. But man, what are we doing on our off time to make sure that the holidays are the healthiest at home, so that we're not picking up 47 extra hours of overtime simply to stay away from something too. And so there's both sides of that coin, that if intentional planning on the first responder side, for our members of the department, will allow for the healthiest version of the holidays for themselves, for their family, for the stations. Because every time the tones go off, we need the healthiest version of every member of the department, because lives are on the line, and we know that.
And again, I hope people realize just, they may be home opening gifts or having their turkey or out at their New Year's dance or doing something like that, but you guys don't get to turn the duty off. You don't get to say, well, it's a holiday, everybody go home for Christmas. We don't need anybody. It's like, you guys, police, hospitals, you guys, it's just another day. You guys got to keep going. So that's really, really important. People understand that you guys are always on duty. You're always ready. And we appreciate you for that. We thank you for that. And if there's not if not everybody's doing it, I wish everybody would. If you see a first responder, fire, police, or anybody, thank them for what they do, because thank God they're there. Thank God you guys are there. One of the things that we brought up just a moment ago was talking about this trauma, and you mentioned rookies. I'm really curious, how does it work that you prepare rookies for what they might see? Because, I can understand veterans, and it's like you walk up on a scene, and as horrible as it is, you've got some experiential evidence to deal with it, at least in part. But with rookies, do you guys help prepare them for those kind of situations where you're going to see something horrible or this might disturb you?
Well, I don't know that you could ever prepare them for some of the things that they're going to see.
Right.
But what we do with our recruits is when they come into the recruit academy, the chaplain meets with them. We have our behavioral health specialist who goes over things, but the chaplain's there as well. And they basically say, listen, you're going to see bad things, and some of these things are going to affect you. And here's what you need to be aware of. And here are some of the downfalls and where this could spiral. So when you see things like that, understand that this is a normal reaction to a very abnormal event. Most people do not see the things that we see, and certainly not day in and day out. So over a period of time, and we've talked about that, right? It's like taking a pebble and putting it in your pocket and not dealing with it. And eventually that pocket rips open and all those pebbles kind of spill out. So early on in their career, even in the academy, before they ever get on a truck, they're given coping skills and mechanisms and ways to seek and find treatment. And we tell them, we can't prepare you for it. And there's going to be some stuff that bothers you, but here are some of the avenues and some of the things that you can do. But the chaplain's there, he meets with them in the academy, and it's discussed.
Thank you for that, Chief. I appreciate that. I sit in those new recruit classes and alongside of our peer support team and the training division here in Gardens, and they really are preparing them for doing their best to prepare them for everything that they are going to encounter. But there's nothing like seeing something in real time. You can't prepare for that, but you train them as good as possible. And then the other side of that is having the conversation and just going, hey, in those moments when it sucks, and it will, I want you to, here are the ways to handle that in the healthiest of ways. But one of the cool things that we do, the peer support team and myself, is I actually encourage them personally to, might sound a little dorky, but bear with me, and some of them started it, it's kind of neat, is keep a journal of the good calls, of the ones that turned out differently, the ones that they thought that things did work out, it did go well, because that is a good bulk majority of the time. But those ones that are really daunting and those ones that wake you up in the middle of the night can feel as if that's all the time. And although they will see it a lot, but if they go back and they keep a journal of the ones that they were truly impactful on and they felt like they made a difference in, they can go back and read through those. And it can help them understand and kind of recenter them slightly of going, hey, it's not all this way. And then have that kind of work themselves out of that situation. And then, of course, reach out to a peer support team member, myself. We have a phenomenal EAP therapist with the department. And so, but we are alongside, and we're being proactive. We talk to the recruits, we talk to the lieutenants and the captains and the chiefs. And it's asking, don't settle for the initial answer. Ask the second, the third, and the fourth question to see if that initial answer is real. And if they're doing that in a way that doesn't feel like an interrogation, but a genuine concern. I remember my first incredibly bad call. And I remember how it was handled. I think I shared it on a previous podcast with you. And you have one chance to impact a recruit in a moment like that. And so the great part is, from what I'm seeing, at least with this department, our department, is the officers are handling it the right way with the recruits and allowing that conversation to unfold in a natural way and not enforced, which is really good.
Well, I do recognize that when somebody's a recruit or a rookie, if you will, you're gonna get picked on. They're gonna get jokes played on. Things happen, and it's like you're the rookie. And but when it comes to the work and their safety, you guys are. Chief, I know you've talked about your recruits and how much you care about them. You guys are so protective of them that the goofing around and stuff has nothing to do with what happens when you're in the field and really doing the work, right? You guys take care of your rookies.
Absolutely. And I think that goofing around is part of our culture, right? It's part of what brings them close together. But at the end of the day, when they're out there on those emergency calls, those senior firefighters are going to look out for them. They're going to go ahead and make sure that they're safe. And everybody knows that once those tones go off, it's go time. There's no more joking. All that's left back at the station. We need to be, have our wits about us 100% because bad things happen on this job. So they get back to the station and that starts again. But they know once those tones go off and that call goes out, it's go time, and they all focus on that.
Absolutely. And Chaplain, I didn't want this to go on. So I loved your idea about keeping a journal about the positive things.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, that's good advice for anybody, because anybody in business or in life or anything, we could do 20 great things in a row. We do one wrong thing, or one thing goes poorly or badly. We forget about all that other stuff. We forget about the 20 or 25 times it worked. We just focus on the bad. So that's really good that people keep a list and say, this was not my day, or this was not a good day today, but I've had a lot of good days. So,
and not that you can't even write those down too, right? I mean, I remember some of the funniest calls that I've been on. I mean, golly, I remember a guy lit his own house. I feel bad. He lit his own house on fire. The guy it was an interesting call. He wound up being naked on the front porch whenever we got there. And he was saying, come and get me. I just remember that call, and it was just the most interesting thing on the planet. All that being said I wrote that down too, because although it wasn't necessarily great, it was super funny. And so
let me guess, you sent the rookie to go. You sent the rookie to go get him, didn't you?
Well, I love police's response. The police department's response, in that they were like, "That's your job. Go do it." And so, but it's you have to remember those moments, and especially during whether it's holidays or not. But it feels different during the holidays because of the season that it is. And then I would encourage the first responders, the firefighters, the medics, the police are listening to this, have a different sense of compassion on a call. These men and women are trained and developed to be able to function in the highest stress moments that anyone would ever see. All that being said, is that it doesn't mean that there's a family member that's sitting right next to you. So having the ability to recognize the environment that they're in, have additional sympathy, empathy in those moments, and could create a really, I don't want to say, from the call, it could help the family member handle it differently as well. And so just want to kind of encourage that out too, how we handle ourselves with the individuals that we're around. And I know that the calls can be very critical, but making sure that we're acknowledging the rest and caring appropriately to our degree and ability. And if they're unable to, that's where sometimes I'll go to a scene. And just a couple of weeks ago was on a scene with the crews, and there were 4 kind of with a family member. As soon as I came up, they were able to leave and get back to what they needed to do, and I was able to step into play. And so encouraging chaplaincy, peer support team members, all that kind of stuff, even on scene, may have a different impact on family.
Excellent. I guess, gentlemen, we should mention, I don't think it's as big a problem as it used to be, but fire hazards around the holidays, and it used to be Christmas trees. Does that still happen? Do people still, I know they're putting lights on and leaving them on unattended. They're overloading their circuits in their house by plugging 3,000 things into one outlet. Or they're even using indoor extension cords outdoors in the rain and the cold. Are we still seeing those kind of things happening?
We are. Even though we do all the education every year, sometimes that education doesn't get to the people who actually need it. But what we see is Christmas trees that are dried out. People don't water their trees enough. Those trees become very brittle. Overloading the circuits is another big thing. They should always be plugged directly into a surge protector, an outlet with a surge protector. So if something does happen, it'll shunt that. But the electrical and the dried Christmas trees, not maintaining them, not watering them, seem to be the two biggest. And then the other comes in third behind that is a lot of times the cooking. Sometimes, something's left on the stove just because there's a lot of stuff going on. So those are the three things that we see. We're lucky and fortunate that we don't see them that much in the city, but they do occur from time to time for sure.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons I switched to artificial trees, just for that reason. It's just trying to keep a tree from drying out and stuff. So you've got to be really, really paying attention to that. And I did mention the extension cords. People should understand some extension cords are only rated for certain purposes. People need to understand that, right?
Yes, and not only that, extension cords are only used for temporary wiring, which is another thing. So a lot of people think that those, especially if you remember, we used to call them the zip cords, the brown, very thin ones we used to use indoors, that those are not used for permanent wiring. And, the other thing they'll do is they'll put them under a rug to hide them so nobody trips on them, which increases the breakdown of that and increases the outside coating of that will heat up and eventually break down. So extension cords in itself have to be used appropriately. So like you said, there are indoor extension cords and outdoor, but they are always used temporarily. They're never supposed to be used for permanent wiring.
Good point. Chad, you want to add anything to safety during the holidays?
No, I mean, always do everything that you can, just checking smoke detectors, all of that, just making sure, depending on where you live, around the country, if it's in a very cold climate, making sure you have the carbon monoxide detectors are great anywhere, but making sure those are all functioning. It can be very accidental, or you start your car unintentionally, you forget that it's inside, and those things do occur in certain times of the year. But a couple nights ago, I was in my garage. You guys brought up Christmas lights and 3 billion lights, and this year I kind of went a little Griswold on my outdoor decorations. And so, with that being said, as I went in my garage and I plugged in the one extension cord for my outside, and the lights were off, and there's a spark. And I think people miss the fact that every single time you're plugging in something to an outlet, it's moving electricity from one area to another, and that spark is real. And depending on how good your cords are, or depending on how where you have your lighting, Cheif brought up under the rug, those items are not meant to have an actual spark attached to it, right? And that can create some significant damage. And so, and then having kids, we talk in our home. Our kids don't turn on our lights, the Christmas lights, the outdoor lights. They don't do anything with that kind of stuff. So we do it. And so, because we're paying attention to it. And so maybe just some family tips on making sure the children are good too. Because they come out in the morning, they might plug something in, and you never know, something may happen. So.
And if I'm gonna give this suggestion: if anybody gets a bulb out on a string of lights, unplug the string of lights. You could search for the bulb, but do not try to repair it while the thing is plugged in. Because I did that. I made that mistake years ago in Jersey, and I was on a ladder and I saw the broken bulb and it was still plugged in. So I grabbed the bulb, but when I did, I made the connection with the wires. The lights lit up and so did I. And it shot me off the ladder into my front lawn. I don't think my neighbor ever laughed so much in his life. It was, luckily I was not hurt, but just be aware of that. Christmas lights, it's electricity. Don't let your kids play with them. Be careful with them. If you have to work on them, unplug them first, please. And of course, what?
That's good advice.
And of course, Cheif, the one thing we could definitely say, don't drink and drive this holiday season, right?
Absolutely not. Go out. If you're going to go out and you're going to have a couple of drinks, make sure you have somebody that's responsible that's going to go ahead and drive you home, or take a cab. It's not worth it. In a blink of an eye, your whole life can change, and somebody else's life can change. So, if you're not sure, then you should be sure that you shouldn't be driving. So,
absolutely.
Take that time.
And a lot of locations are partnering up with different driving companies, whether it be Uber or Lyft or whatever. They, for certain times of year, they may have a connection with them where you could get a free Uber home. And so know the location you're going to, always having that designated driver is good. And, for we're here on a first responder, and those that are going to be watching this kind of are in this industry, this job. And I just want to encourage those that are, man, if you're struggling in this season, if the holidays are hard for you, there are great organizations, much like the one we're on with right now, and others that are here to help you to make sure that you're good. You do not have to struggle through this season alone, and especially attaching yourself to something that is destructive for you. And so, not saying that you have to give up everything, but what you do matters. Who you are matters more. And so I want to make sure that our first responder family, they see a lot, they go through a lot, they battle their own stuff. Everyone thinks that it's just the work side. They got the personal side. There's two sides of every person. And but you're not alone walking through this. Talk to someone in your department, talk to a peer support team member, talk to an officer. Heck, I mean, if they could even put it in the show notes, my number can be up there. My email can be up there. I'm more than willing to take your call. And I all of that is confidential, but I just want to make sure that our crews know that they don't have to struggle through the holiday. It can be great. Creating wonderful traditions, even inside of the station for Christmas. Start thinking now, hey, what are we going to cook? What are we going to do? How are we going to decorate? Whatever it is that can make the holidays feel really great at the station on holidays is going to make the morale better. It's going to feel better. You still get that something about the smells of the holiday, and so you can even figure that out. But it just takes some intentional planning for first responders. And so we just want to encourage departments to do that throughout. Make it special. It doesn't have to just be, oh man, I'm bummed out because I'm not at home. Although sometimes that can stink. But if you plan on that side, you can be home on that day too for the family and for the little kiddos. But in the stations, making that special for your extended family, which is really what it is. And to make that day special and that time special is really great. But just take some intentional planning. That's all.
Chief, I got to tell you, you're always bragging. And this is you're allowed to brag, especially when you could back it up. You're bragging about your staff and the people at Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. And Chad is not a rarity. This is what your people do, is they care about each other, right?
They really do. That starts with the culture, like we talked about from the recruit class, right? We're all here to support each other. It's important. The job is difficult enough to what we have to do just to do the job. But to make sure that we're all safe, we're all healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and that's got to come. And I told you, I think my biggest skill is finding the right people for the right job and putting them in place and just letting them do what they do and staying out of their way. And you see, it's worked. I mean, we really lucked out when we were able to get the chaplain on board. He instantly connected with our people, and that's not easy, as you know. They're a little skeptical on the outside, but what he had was he was in the fire service. He was a firefighter paramedic, so he's able to relate with them, and I think that was a huge plus in moving forward with them, because they know that he understands, because he's been there, he's done that. But again, it's all about making sure you got good people taking care of your people. So we're very, very fortunate.
And finally, with the holidays and everything, it had been mentioned before, you guys really kind of do open up your house. I mean, family comes in and visits, the spouses stop by the stations, and, you guys are about the family. When somebody works for you, their extended family, their husband or wife, their kids, they become part of your family as well, don't they, Chief?
Absolutely. And, having them come in on Christmas and having everybody there together and having the kids come by and then seeing the families, kind of everybody converges together. So people that you haven't seen in a long time, but you've worked with that crew, you haven't seen their family, having everybody in there, having the stations decorated. Those guys do it themselves. We'll walk in 2 weeks from now and the stations will all be decorated, and they'll have very elaborate plans for a great dinner. And having family come by to eat with them. And we encourage that. I mean, it is an extended family. We want them to kind of minimize the fact that you're not home and you're not there, but you're with your extended family. So we support that 100%.
Now, Are there any charities or anything you guys are involved in for this holiday season that you want to make people aware of? Toy drives or food drives or anything like that?
The city does a toy drive every year. They drop it off to all the fire stations have boxes inside where people can drop off toys, and then they get it to, last year it was I can't even tell you how many toys were given out. We actually have toys that are left over from last year because everybody was so generous. So they do go to good use. And the firefighters, a lot of them have their own things that they do. Some of them do Make-A-Wish Foundation. Some of them do other things. They all have something. And during this time of the year that they'll do it. It's not unusual that we get like a Make-A-Wish thing for kids to come out and come to the firehouse and see the fire trucks and things like that. And we're happy to do it. At the end of the day, it's not my fire department. It's our residents' fire department. It's the city's. It's people's fire department. And we want to share that. So, but all those charities are great. The toys for tots, all those. It all goes to a good place. And if everybody chips in and makes sure that some child's Christmas is a little bit better for something that you do, what makes Christmas better than that?
Just make sure you drop off, folks. If you want to do that, you can stop at any of the stations, and they have the drop box. Unwrapped toy. Do not wrap the toy.
That's
Unwrapped
correct.
toy, please. And no perishable items, obviously. But certainly, a soccer ball could change a kid's life.
Absolutely.
A GI Joe or a Barbie doll could change a kid's life. These things are just, I don't even know. Do they even make GI Joe anymore?
They should.
do.
They don't.
They do?
I don't know. I think they think. I
No,
hope
they-
they do.
They
That's-
do. Years ago, they used to have firefighter GI Joes, and I always used to get a bunch and put them in there for the toys.
I still have an FDNY one from 9/11.
I have the same one.
Yep.
Hang on to that. That's gonna
I
be one.
will. Yep.
But they do. They still make the GI Joes. Legos. So what we do is anytime we do something, we do a Legos, but we do it with a firehouse theme. It's either a fire truck or a firehouse or some kind of rescue thing when we drop them off. We're recruiting very early in age.
I mentioned GI Joe, and the nerds just jumped right up. We're all yeah, toys, yay! Listen, we all love that stuff, and it's really great to see kids light up with. A lot of kids don't have much, and thank you for doing what you guys do for all of that. So I guess I'm wishing you guys a safe and happy holidays. Would you like to have any holiday messages you would like to end with? We'll start with Chaplain. Any holiday messages for the community?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go this route. I am a chaplain, so I look through life with a different lens, and I realize that not every family is whole, but man, do everything you can this year to make the family that you're surrounding yourself with. It may not be blood, but they are with you. And do everything you can to invest time in the right locations and make the healthiest of decisions and choices throughout the season, and make every opportunity. If you're here, if you're at your station, you're at your house, regardless of where you are in the country, you get to do this. And on a day and during the holidays, no one's thinking of emergencies, right? But they happen anyway, and they happen all the time. And the reality is you are showing up to create a situation much better for someone that's in crisis. And so you get to do this. It is an honor to do it. And I know every recruit we talk about going back, man, why did you want to do this? Why did you make a list of the top 10 reasons why you wanted to do this? And it can go back from, man, is it the lights? Did you want to drive in the big truck? Did you want the gear? Did you want to do all that? Whatever it was, go back and write that list and remember it during the holidays that you're living out your dream that you had when you were little. And so even when it's a little bit more tense, even when it's a little bit more stress, it is still the blessing that you get to walk in.
Thank you, Chaplain. Chief, holiday message.
Yeah. So to all firefighters everywhere, all first responders, thanks for everything you do all throughout the year and keeping the community safe. For the community, know that it's an honor and a privilege to serve, and that, they should have a lot of comfort knowing that when that bell rings and they have an emergency, we're going to show up 100% of the time, and we're going to mitigate their emergency, and we're going to make sure they or their family are safe. So we want to just wish everybody a happy, healthy holiday, happy, healthy New Year. We never know what the next year is going to bring, but hopefully we'll all be here next year having this same show and talking about the holidays.
That's fantastic, and I certainly want to echo those sentiments. Thanking you guys, Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue, and certainly all other first responders, people out there who do the job so that we're all safer and healthier because of what you do, and we appreciate that. And to the community out there, it's we seem to be pretty resilient. We've been through a lot. The last few years have shown that financial hardships, physical hardships, health hardships, all sorts of things go on. But we need more than just being resilient. We have to have a happy life too. We have to care about each other. The chaplain mentioned it, find your family, find your tribe. It might not be the people you were born with, but it's certainly going to be the ones who have your back, the ones you want to be around. But that's all we got to do. I want everybody to have a safe and happy, healthy holiday. You two gentlemen are like the top of the top. I love you guys. You guys are great. Thank you for everything that you guys do. And personally, I want to wish both of you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. All right.
Thanks, Scott. And again, for you, for ATC, everything that you cared, you guys are out there fighting the fight every day. 365 days a year. You're also out there for anybody that calls. You guys turn nobody away. We appreciate everything that you guys do. We wish you guys a happy, healthy holiday and New Year as well. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Allowing me to be a part of your department and to be a part of a podcast like this. I appreciate it more than you realize. Thank you for your sentiments.
No, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate you taking the time. All right, for everybody out there, please have a happy, healthy holiday season. Make sure you share this with your friends and talk about it. Lots of shows out there, but this one is about the real what's going on in the fire department, the rescue, the first responders. You're listening to Firehouse Table Talk. I'm your host, Scott Jones. We will catch you next time.